All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. Or, yeah, it's still morning. Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Woohoo! Thanks for coming today. We really appreciate it. Before Adam and I and Catherine in the Zoom channel hop in, I just want to take a moment and thank our UC Berkeley partners for putting UC Tech together this year. It's a colossal effort. As the last campus that did it, UC San Diego, we know and appreciate how much work this is. So thank you so much. All right, so our presentation today is entitled Discover UC San Diego, Leveling the Equity Playing Field for Public High Schoolers. And before we tell you exactly what that is and why it's so special, we're gonna tell you who we are first. So my name is Dan Suki, obviously at UC San Diego, and I'm Senior Director of Educational Technology Services, which is basically the integrated suite of tools, services, support, facilities, and other things that enhance teaching and learning with technology. And I'm joined by my partner, Adam.
Hi there, I'm Adam Tillman. I'm an architect and analyst that works for Academic Technology Services, which includes Dan's group, but also our research IT group. Lately, I've been doing a lot of work helping Dan out with some initiatives like this.
And I also want to introduce Catherine Collins, who could not join us today, but we were the three musketeers on the technology piece of this master program. So Catherine Collins she heads up the EdTech support division, part of our unit. She's also the service owner of Canvas, our LMS, and the service owner of several other enterprise services that kind of leverage, that enhance teaching and learning. So Catherine will be in the Zoom session. And I don't know how many folks we have in Zoom, but for those folks in Zoom, or if you're on your laptop in Zoom and you have a question, throw it in chat. And she will be there and she can answer it for us. And then at the end of today's presentation, we'll try to save at least 5 minutes for any questions you all have in person. Sound good? Awesome. All right, let me get to the next slide. Doesn't seem to be advanced.
So folks up in the booth, could you, get the Zoom interface off I think if you click into Google Slides, we'll be able to advance. Thanks.
Did it go? Awesome. All right. So what is Discover UC San Diego? Well, in short, it's an opportunity for high school students, public high school students, to take our classes, so college-level courses, for free of charge and online. So if you think about it for a second, that's a pretty bold thing to do. We're saying we're going to offer our courses, which usually cost money, and have rigors of our faculty and all that, but we're going to offer them for public high schoolers. And the reason we're doing this is for several reasons. This really is kind of the vision and brainchild of our partners at the Educational Innovation Office, and our group, IT Services, work closely with them to help them realize their visions. Now, one of the big reasons we want to offer this for San Diego high school students is because we recognize that there's advanced placement courses, AP courses. You all know what those are. That's so high school students can get college credit, take courses in high school. Well, advanced placement is inherently inequitable. So, for instance, our campus is in La Jolla, California. You can imagine if you go to high school there, you probably have some pretty good resources as far as advanced placement. However, and further out in the county, there are students who might not have any access to advanced placement. So while it's a great program, advanced placement is awesome, the reality is a lot of students don't have that resource. So we're here to help supplement that. And the second reason we wanted to offer this is because it offers dual credit. I mean, the students can get credit in high school and get credit towards college. So it's an incentive for them to attend UC San Diego or another UC campus and get equivalent credit elsewhere. And that's pretty important as well. And then the long-term vision here really is to make the first 3 quarters of all our majors free and online for public high schoolers. Now, if that's not a bold thing for a public university to do, then I don't know what is. It's pretty massive. We're starting small, but we really hope to get there someday. And this is important too, because it addresses our UC time degree problem. Our UC San Diego, like the rest of y'all campuses, I mean, the 4-year degree is becoming a myth, let's be honest. It's harder and harder for students to get out in 4 years. So we're hoping by offering them courses before they get into college, They'll find out what they like. They'll maybe settle in a little quicker. They'll get some credit already coming into college. So it really helps that out. It also helps our students, choose the right major before they have to formally declare their major. So for instance, can somebody, and I know we got some UC San Diego folks here, maybe you know, maybe you don't. Can somebody guess how many credits and formal fields of specialization we offer on campus? Just throw out a number. Higher. 162. So just imagine as you're a freshman. I don't know about you all, but when I first came to college, I didn't even know where my classes were, right? I had to figure out on a map. And so we're asking freshmen coming in to choose from 162 different choices. So we're hoping by giving them a taste in a low stakes, but also offering credit situation, they might come in and say, I don't want to do, electrical engineering. I actually want to do theater and dance or what have you. And then finally, we're offering this because we want to scale this across California and beyond. We think there's a good program here. We think there's an incentive to do it, and we're pretty excited about it. All right, so these are, advance. There we go. Thanks. So these are the partners we had in the program. UC San Diego IT Services, that's us. Also UC San Diego Extended Services, or Extended Studies. So a lot of you have your own kind of extension or extended studies unit. They were integral to this. We also have our Teaching Learning Commons, which is the pedagogy arm of campus. And finally, definitely last but not least, San Diego Unified School District. Now, this is a massive, this is like 80 or 90,000 students.
I think even 100 more.
100 or more. So they make our campuses look like small potatoes. So it's a really interesting challenge to work with such a large organization. Thank you. So these are the first 4 courses we're offering as a pilot. 3 of these are running right now in summer, and another one's going to run in fall. The American Sign Language is going to run in fall. This is very much, like I said, a pilot. These courses launched in June. They earn credit as they take them, and it's a pretty good deal. And so the goal is to build upon these. And as the students take these courses, they have full synchronous and asynchronous support. Like I said, these are taught by our faculty, so they experience the same rigors of a UC San Diego course, and they also get full support via teaching assistants. And one last thing to add to this too is we've really built open educational resources as a foundation for this. We don't want these students to take a free course and then pay for a $200 textbook. That's really doesn't make any sense, especially for students that might not be able to afford a $200 textbook. So go to the website and check it out if you like. It's a great website. It tells you a lot more about our program. All right, so in launching this and in planning this and preparing this, massive amount of work. And these are kind of some of the tenets we had to keep in mind as we did this. First, we had to leverage a brand new workflow with a brand new school district, a K through 12 school district. So Adam's going to dig into that, but there was a lot of new work we had to do here. We also had to consider that high school students, at least in San Diego County, and probably a lot of your counties too, are issued Chromebooks. They get a Chromebook when they arrive on campus. So the good thing about designing for a single computer is what you're faced with. The bad thing is the Chromebook. So it has some limitations, right? So we had to kind of work around that and make sure that everything could work nicely on a Chromebook. Third, the media was really important. We use Kaltura, which is our enterprise video platform, but we had to make sure that worked on a Chromebook. We also had to make sure that, this is video and video recording assignments. These are minors. So this is a new dynamic for us too. There's definitely more restrictions for somebody under 18. And finally, like I mentioned, OERs were critical. And as we developed the program, we're really going to push that these courses cost nothing for students, including textbooks. All right, so next I'm going to turn it over to Adam as we're going to dive into the technical infrastructure and the shared IT goals.
All right, thanks, Dan. So like Dan said, this is, there are a lot of differences in connecting with high school students and working with minors. It was a strong partnership with the San Diego Unified District, I think, that really made this into a success and allowed us to run the courses this quarter. We worked very closely with their IT group. Other parts of this project had counterparts within the district. And hopefully we have built something that, as Dad said, can scale. The first thing we did was to just really identify our goals. And the program designers, those folks in our educational innovation group, were adamant that we use campus resources as much as possible. Dan mentioned Kaltura, but we also we wanted our faculty, but also the incoming students to use Canvas, Zoom, Turnitin, other tools. We wanted this to be an authentic UCSD experience, and we wanted our faculty that were teaching these courses to be able to make use of their existing capabilities. And so then the challenge was, how do we get these students, and small number at the beginning, but if we're looking at scaling out across California, how do we get thousands of students across maybe dozens or more school districts access to our campus systems? We did not want to go through the process of bringing them in, these students in as formal campus guests. That's a one-by-one process on our campus. I don't know about yours. And there just wasn't really the bandwidth there, and the timeframes weren't really amenable for student use. And so we started looking into how can we link the school district's existing authentication systems into our applications. And that's pretty straightforward to do one by one. We could connect their Active Directory into our Canvas. And for a pilot, that would be okay. But when we start looking at school districts across the state, if you look at the top 25 school districts across the state, we've got a mixture of Google, Microsoft. We've got some school districts that have their own internal custom identity management and authentication system, even to this day. And we were anticipating having to go through a significant kind of integration phase with each one of these school districts. And that would be a pretty significant impediment. A lot of those districts just don't have the resources. We were blessed with San Diego Unified that they've got a large and kind of high-powered team. Some of these districts have one person running their computers. And if we get out into other areas of California. And so we started looking at what publishers do. And so a lot of the educational publishers, Pearson and the like, they have the same problem. They have educational materials, not open, unfortunately, but that they need to make available in a scalable way. And so a marketplace has opened up within the K-12 sector for intermediate identity management proxies, really. And those systems allow the school district to connect and integrate with that service. And then that service provides a single integration point for the publisher or for the program, such as Discover. And so we looked at that marketplace, and we looked at what was in use. And among those 25 top largest school districts in California, Clever was by far the preferable option. And so we went and piloted early on last fall, connected the district into Clever, validated the data flows, and we ultimately contracted with Clever through with the assistance of campus council, and to kind of hammer out the details. And so now we've got a link with Clever, and we could potentially open up our program to any district that is able to log in, able to connect their systems with Clever. And then we also wanted to streamline enrollment. And so our ideal scenario is for the high school guidance counselors to work with a student. They identify the student, as Dan says, admit them, decide what classes. And from that point forward, we would like the process to be automated. We don't want to have a human in the loop. We don't want to have any delays that are not necessary. And so we looked at a feature that Canvas has, which will propagate the school district's SIS data up into Clever. And it will do a data mapping from their schema up to a standard Clever schema. And then we can adapt only to that one schema. And we're looking at that as a way as well to be able to accommodate a wide variety of student information systems out in the K-12 districts some of whom use an LMS as their primary SIS even, and that's, it would be very difficult to integrate in a normal ETL fashion. So we're really happy with the ability of Clever to sit as that intermediary. It's allowed us to link that student data into our SIS, and then from there, we can provision these students just like any other student. And I think that's an important part of this program. Once a high school student begins participating, they are a UCSD student, and they have access to the resources that UCSD students have to fulfill their coursework. And then the last part is that we need demographics, we need data, we need information that shows us how successful this program is, and that's both from kind of the educational outcomes, but also from the equity outcomes. And that means that we need a lot of data coming from the school district. These would be things like English learner status, free lunch eligibility. This is information that's pretty sensitive. And so down the road, and we haven't done this yet, we are looking to link that data, which is flowing through Clever, out into our secured Tableau and Cognos environments, so that we can appropriately manage that information, give our analysts access to it, but not leave that data sitting around in spreadsheets or in people's email. All right, so I'm just going to give you a very brief walkthrough of the student login experience, and this is what a San Diego Unified student would be doing this summer. We had a minor technical glitch we might get into later, but this is what will definitely be happening in the fall. When San Diego Unified students enter kindergarten, they're given an Active Directory username and password, which I was really surprised when my kindergartner started school that she was already, having to deal with identity management and password complexity and the like, and but she did it, and they apparently do it, and so this becomes a very familiar login environment. Whenever they see San Diego Unified login, they know they can click to it, get to the San Diego Unified Active Directory portal, and they know how to log in. And then from there, again, from kindergarten, they're sent to a portal. And typically for even up through high school, that they are being sent directly into Clever for most tools. And the list of tools that they see in this interface, it varies depending on the courses they're enrolled in. The teachers have control, the district has control. And so what we have been able to do is connect students that are enrolled in the district side sections corresponding to our classes. We've been able to deploy the Discover UC San Diego app within Clever, which then allows them to connect directly into our Canvas right now. So for the pilot and for this initial term, we are focusing only on Canvas and anything that can be authenticated via LTI. In the future, we're looking at building a bridge from Clever into our Shibboleth environment so that they can authenticate to Clever, and then that will give them access to our full suite of campus tools. And that's, I think that's going to be necessary as we scale the program out to other courses that are working with a much more diverse set of educational technology. Dan, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so everyone's got to memorize this now because we got a quiz coming up. No, we debated whether to show this slide, but I think it's important, not just because we're kind of video nerds, but also because we want to show you all the work that went into the workflow and all the different groups. And you'll notice up there, the big layer in the middle is Clever and how critical that was to the piece. In fact, speaking of Clever, it's interesting that they, K through 12s have something like Clever, like this common authentication portal. And I keep thinking to myself, how great would that be if all of our higher ed had a version of Clever? I don't know if we could ever get together on something like that or settle on one vendor, but it's pretty amazing that a lot of K through 12 districts have done so. So pretty neat. And yeah, so this is our workflow. If you're interested in it, I'd be happy to share this with you, walk you through it. If you're interested in doing something similar, or if you're from an extension or extended studies office and you kind of want to get more involved with this, we'd love to walk you through it. Thank you. All right, so Adam and I are going to kind of talk now about some of the lessons learned. As you can probably imagine, it didn't go exactly as we planned because it was a pilot. Right now, the course has been running for about, what, 3 weeks, I think, 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And we've learned a lot, and we've taken a lot back. And we're definitely going to take things apart and put them back together, hopefully make them a little better in the long run. But these are just some of the themes, and we'll probably think of some other ones too as we go. First off, communication is vital. You know, you all know this, but we can't overstress it enough. As we were doing this project, we had probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 different groups working together, not always talking together, unfortunately. So that's why communication here is key. We've also kind of learned that we need to develop even more of an agile mindset, and that is to plan, execute, reassess, and redeploy. And as an IT organization, IT services, we're huge into process improvement, something we're really proud of as an organization. So we try to bring this to whatever programs we do. So it's something we're going to keep in mind as this develops out of the pilot phase into like a full-fledged program. And third, and this relates to the first bullet, is that working with multiple organizations on a single project is really hard, y'all. And what I mean is, not only are you working, you know, you all know this, right? Working within your own department, sometimes, you know, fostering effective collaboration can be challenging. Then when you scale that to your own university, again, you know, it can be really challenging. Now try throwing in a 100,000 plus student district. And what we learned is not all the teams in that district are talking to each other about our program. So next time, I think we're going to do a much better job organizing and kind of refining the communication workflows, because they definitely came out as pain points in the pilot. And finally, one important thing, you know, what Adam described was something that will scale to hundreds of thousands of high schoolers. And we're really excited about using that. But we also learned that we need to be okay with minimum viable to get a pilot out the door. So some of our infrastructure for the pilot was adopted, but to be honest, some of it we had to revert to more manual processes. You all are familiar with manual processes too. So that won't scale, we recognize it, but it allowed us to get the pilots to happen. Long-term though, we're gonna employ everything Adam talked about to make this work. Are there any other lessons learned, Adam?
I think just assuming goodwill at every turn. I mean, and I think that's part of the kind of communication. I mean, I think we've had some miscommunications, but I think everybody, you know, on our side in the district, their overarching goal was the success of their students and our students. And I think just, you know, taking those challenges as they come in and, you know, continuing to move forward.
All right. So next steps. Like I said, we're concluding the pilot. The summer is going to end here in about 4 or 5 weeks, and then we have the American Sign Language class in fall. And then we need to develop new courses. We need to rerun our existing courses because they're fantastic. They're already developed, designed. We have fantastic multimedia. So we're looking forward to doing that. And we're going to continue to work with the San Diego School District. And then next, we also want to further develop, you know, the clever approach to make sure that it can scale for all the new districts we bring on board. And speaking of, San Diego County is just the start. We're already in talks with other school districts in California, including those whose students, to be frank, might come from households that might not have access to advanced placement, lower income households, folks that Discover UC San Diego was especially designed for, including rural communities too. So we've started talking with some of those counties, and they're excited about working with us. We're excited about working with them. All right. So that is, oh, I should mention one more shout out to the website, so please go there and check it out. That actually concludes our presentation, but we'd love to see if you have any questions, and we'd love to answer them. I think, yeah, thanks for running the mic around.
Oh, look, it worked. From the beginning of the when was the project imagined, pitched, and then how long did it take to get your MVP up?
Get our what out?
Your minimum viable product up?
Oh, that's a great question. I think this vision started from our Associate Vice Chancellor, Carl Jensen, who I mentioned, the Educational Innovation Office. And it really was his brainchild, and that was probably about 18 months ago, 2 years ago almost. And it started as an idea, and probably the thing that took the longest initially was just working with the San Diego County School District and getting them on board. Because as you can imagine, they have dozens of programs, nothing quite like this. So that probably took 6 to 8 months to get that going. The technology infrastructure, how long did we work on that, Adam?
Probably a couple of months on and off over that period.
Yeah.
That seemed to go fairly smoothly in comparison to the kind of the more policy side of it.
Yeah, and not to brag, but this is UC Tech, so we can brag about it. But we were often, the executive group was talking about how the infrastructure group was way ahead of everybody else. So our goal was to stay way ahead of everybody else, and we did. So yeah, all that time was spent designing courses, developing the multimedia, developing infrastructure, and it's the last 2 weeks frenzied effort to get it out the door. Any other questions? We got Matt up front here. Who's got the mic? Here we go.
It's coming.
I did have one. Okay, thank you. So I think your program is so wonderful and fantastic. The reason I say that is because this summer, one of our schools is working with a team of high school students called Achieve Scholars. And it's an internship program that they had, and they learn a lot when they come to our campus. But I was just wondering whether another school can partner with UCSD to probably roll out something like this for Berkeley as well. I think it's wonderful that they get to take classes at UCSD for free. It would be nice for Bay Area kids to be able to take advantage of that too.
Yeah, I would say we'd love to partner with our UC campuses. I think the big thing here, the initial hurdle is convincing your leadership, particularly academic leadership, to put up the initial funding, because this isn't free, right? You got to pay our faculty. They're not going to teach these courses for free, especially over the summer. You got to pay the people to design the courses. You got to pay us for our time. So yeah, we'd love to partner with campuses and help get that conversation started with anybody.
Hey, so how did you find, or how did you recruit instructors and courses specifically for your pilot? And maybe this was a single course at this point, but how do you envision encouraging instructors or specific courses to be on board with this? And does it do much to their workload or the requirements that are needed to score these additional students who are now in their roster?
It's a good question, Matthew. Yeah, there was that was initially, well, it's a little bit of both. So we started with some definite intentionality about the courses we wanted to offer. So for instance, the computer science and engineering course, Introduction to Python, that one we definitely wanted to offer. So we went after that faculty to try to get them on board, because we knew that would be popular and it'd bring in the students. We know Python's very, something that high schoolers are very interested in. It's got, good career potential later in life. So that's something we went with intentionality. The other courses, ethnic studies, American Sign Language, and the Scripps Institute Oceanography course, those were actually faculty who were more passionate themselves about this. So we put out a call to a bunch of different departments, a bunch of different divisions, and those are the faculty that answered. And of course, there is some incentives too. As faculty, they get paid something over the summer to teach the course. But it really was a little bit of both. And in a pilot program, you really work with whoever is willing to step forward and say, I want to teach the course.
I think long-term, that's really where having the campus leadership bought into this will help, because that leadership can help clear the path for these faculty members to make this a priority and not just make it something on the side, but a core part of their service to the university.
Extension Canvas versus campus Canvas. I assume went with extension because of the difficulty maybe getting to single sign-on for the students. Was that the reason for extension Canvas?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we did go back and forth initially and really wanted to offer the quote unquote main campus versus the extended studies Canvas. And I think we settled on several reasons. One is that extended studies now hosts a population of all sorts of different folks, non-matriculated folks, adult learners. They also do some of their own K through 12 programs. So in a way, their platform lent itself to this program a little easier than ours. The main campus is amazingly set up for enrolled students, and so much more. It has so much more automation, I feel, than the extended studies Canvas. But theirs is just better designed for non-matriculated UCSDers.
And then also extended studies is providing some of the program management in terms of support for the students, but also support for the faculty, and just running the kind of the administrative aspects of the program. And they have pretty close links to their educational technology group. And that, I think there's a beneficial proximity over there.
Did you have to sync the courses then from campus Canvas to extended studies Canvas? And were you concerned about them getting out of sync over time, or it's just a one-time copy and you're good to go?
These are entirely new courses. I mean, rather, they have gone through an entirely new development phase, likely taking components from campus Canvas. I think and I think probably even in the future, you probably could not take an existing campus course, directed at fully matriculated university students in person, et cetera, and just shift it into this program. I think that there would have to be some sort of online development work.
Yeah, there were other considerations too. So for instance, San Diego County kids, they can't share outside of their Google domain, and they can't receive email outside of their own domain. So these things are like fundamentally difficult. We're just so used to sharing a Google Doc with Jessica or whoever. You can't do it if you're a high school kid. So we had to the courses had to be designed around those restrictions as well.
Okay, last question if I have time. You talked about analytics, so I assume Student Activity Hub, which for those who don't know is IT services sort of analytics portal or central storage area for that. Were there different policies involved there other than FERPA, like privacy policies at the high school level?
Definitely, and this relationship went up and had to be approved by the San Diego Unified School Board. And then there were a number of changes actually in the program, or a number of steps that had to gain their approval. And I think that was one of the reasons for some of the length between initial conception and deployment, was just getting it on the docket for them to consider. It was helpful that UC San Diego already had existing data sharing agreements with San Diego Unified. I'm sure that's true of other campuses, and there are some other local districts, whether for schools of education or the like. We were able to rely on those for some of the data handling and privacy concerns. But even so, this is new enough that this needed to go up for kind of full review and ratification at the very highest levels in the district.
Yep, question.
I was curious, from the pilot, do you already have an idea of the student performance or completion rates of the students that participated in the first courses?
Sorry, I missed part of your question.
About the student performance and the completion rates just through the first class of students that have gone through the pilot.
How we're assessing the performance? Is that
yeah, or if you have any idea of what the results were from the first cohort.
So the mid-pilot, we've had, what we found is we have some attrition from the course, and we're figuring that out, to be honest, because it's a higher level attrition than we have with matriculated students. And so that we know, and there's several reasons. A big reason is they're free courses during the summer. So, if you're in high school, you're like, I would rather go to the pool or whatever. So that's part of it for sure. So it takes some self-motivation. But the courses are gonna be graded. They're gonna get real credit in high school. So that's a motivation, real credit in college too. And then long-term, we're partnering with, you saw the slide up earlier with Teaching Learning Commons. They have an assessment arm, And that's all they do is just, determine the efficacy of teaching. And they're actually going to launch a bunch of post-course surveys to determine how effective the courses were. But like I said, we are seeing some attrition, and we're trying to figure that out. I hope that answered your question. Cool. All right, any other questions or comments? I don't know if we had any questions in Zoom, and if we did, I assume we did. Great. Catherine, hopefully, I think she's been in the session and. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Says I saw online this is open only to high school students living in California and going to a California public school. Is this open to students who attend Oregon Public High School? And this is from Shelley.
Not at this time. We'd love to be able to say yes, but that's probably a year or two out at least. We're really focusing on California first, just because there's so many more hurdles with crossing state lines with this stuff. But we've also had, it's funny, in our own IT organization, we have parents, colleagues and parents reach out and say, hey, can you get my high schooler kid in here? And we don't have any any sway to get kids in any earlier than anybody else. Hopefully someday.
Thank you. And I'll just state this here, and not at this time, only for California this time.
Yep. Correct.
I'm doing a quick time check. We have 5 more minutes left to go.
All right. I'll do a quick question check. Any other questions or comments?
I know that with some university faculty, it's hard to get them to convert over to OER, open educational resources that are free. Did you start the pilot with the requirement that OER be used?
A soft requirement that OER be used. We started with these great intentions of faculty are just going to hop on board with OERs immediately, but the reality is, faculty have built their courses around textbooks, sometimes their own, and rightly so. So we started off with a much harder line about OERs, but again, faculty, they have kind of free rein how they teach courses as they should. So it ended up being a negotiation point. And I imagine, I don't know exactly the details, but there probably was situations where we might have subsidized centrally the cost of some of these materials for the students. But that, again, that won't scale to thousands. It'll only scale to the 400 that are in the pilot now. Something we got to work on as a campus and as a system. We all know that. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. We really appreciate it. And go Cal. Thank you.